this just in. Americans forget the Bush years. A special report at Democratic Insight featuring Irma Latouche with Sevilla Bumblebutt and Dick Miolata. It wasn't always Bush's fault. Remember what the Republican Party did. Reporting from America, Irma Latouche.
Good evening. Glad you decided to join in. It seems America has a very short memory. It's only been about 4 years since George W. Bush left office, and America appears to have forgotten the massive damage he caused to our country. It's also easy to forget that Bush couldn't have damaged our country all by himself. The Republican Party enabled Bush. The Republican Party is as much responsible as George Bush, if not more. America seems to forget that Republicans and President Bush had total control of our government for 6 years, and together they implemented policies which destroyed our nation financially and damaged our credibility as the moral beacon the world once looked up to. Yes, some blue dog Democrats joined in, and we need to get rid of them. However, the damage done to our nation is primarily the work of the Republican Party. The Republicans did everything they could to damage all of us, and they succeeded. Now, 4 years later, millions of Americans seem ready to let the Republicans do even more damage to our nation. It's as though the Bush Republican years didn't exist. For additional opinion, we go to KGSZP News in Topeka, Kansas with Sevilla Bumblebutt. Hey, how's it going, Sevilla? What do you think about Republican responsibility for many of our problems?
Irma, it's so nice to see you. You know what I think. The Republicans, controlled by the Tea Party, hate our government and want to destroy it. Ron Paul Republicans want to dismantle our government and turn it over to large multinational corporations and inflict fascism on the American people.
I know that sounds a little harsh for some people, but you make a good point. It does seem as though in America we have less concern for the people and too much concern for corporations. Great input, Sevilla. Stay with us, please. I want to hear more from you in a minute. Now, we turn to Dick Miolata with KTTBS News in New York City. Dick, you're always up for the occasion. What do you have to say about all this?
Hello, Irma. You're looking good as usual. I happen to agree with Sevilla regarding those Ron Paul Republicans. It's true what you said as well. The Republicans had control of the House, the Senate, and the White House for 6 years. They did a lot of damage during those years despite Democratic efforts to stop them.
I know! How can the American people forget what they did? Why would anyone want to give them another chance? Especially now, when Romney and the Republicans are promising to go even further than the Bush-era Republicans. It's amazing!
Considering the history of the Republican Party and the people they have chosen to run for president, it's no surprise the Republicans have done so much damage. Mitt Romney is simply a continuation of destructive Republicans seeking the presidency.
What do you mean? Explain yourself.
I believe I know what she's trying to say. Going all the way back to Ronald Reagan, the Republicans have produced mass murderers, religious hypocrites, liars, criminals, and fascist-leading pigs to be president of the United States.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
You're going to get me in a lot of trouble saying things like that.
Dick just spoke the truth. These days, telling the truth will get you in more trouble than if you tell an outright lie. Let's go back. Look at how the Republicans supported Reagan and how they worship the guy to this day.
All right, Dick. Are you going to be a dick?
You just know I am, cutie pie. Look at what Reagan did. He started this whole supply-side economics farce.
Hey, Dickie boy, don't call me cutie pie on the air. Wait until we meet up in New York City.
Hey, Irma, who's that guy next to you?
Oh my God! Who are you and what are you doing in my studio?
Well, if you must know, my name is Ben Bendover-Mia, and I want to meet Dick Miolata and see if we can hook up later on.
Well, all right. Can you come to New York? You know, sometime when Irma isn't here.
Dick, you are a dick. I've had enough of this. Ben, get the hell out of my studio. I'll talk to you later, Mr. Hotshot from New York City. Sevilla, what were you saying?
I'm sorry, Irma. I tried to warn you about that dick. Now you know.
What are you doing here? I told you to get out. Get out! I said get out.
Hold on there, Irma. I jawboned with Dick. He said he was just kidding. He really loves you, you know. Besides, you're talking about stuff I want to jack my jaws about.
Well, all right. I'll let Dick get back in the saddle. But you better watch yourself, or I'll put my shoe in that place the sun don't shine. You get me?
As I was saying, Reagan created massive debt with his harebrained supply-side economics fiasco. Do you know this nation for the last 22 years has paid $3.7 trillion in interest just on the debt he created? That's just interest, no payment on principal. He's the original, pure Republican union buster. Their latest incarnation, Mitt Romney, is just a chip off Reagan's block.
He never went to church a day in his life, except to do political speeches. Reagan and his wife Nancy broke into the movies on Hollywood's casting couch. For crying out loud.
He broke U.S. law with Iran-Contra, causing the deaths of thousands of innocent people. If there's a God in heaven, he's burning in hell right now.
Nancy Reagan conducted foreign policy with the help of her astrologer, because Ronald Reagan had literally lost his mind.
Despite Ronald Reagan's anti-God, anti-American disregard for the law, and all the human beings he murdered for political purposes, and the fact he didn't even know his own name when he left office, Republicans worship him like he's the second coming of Jesus. Go figure.
Yeah. Then there was George H. Bush Sr. What a piece of work he was.
Oh, I know. He's another Republican who claimed to believe in Jesus, ran around murdering everyone, and then the so-called Christian believers fell all over themselves in an orgy of blood, death, and killing in support of the guy.
With the help of all of the North, Bush Sr., while vice president under Reagan, ran drugs from South America through Panama, and then sold those drugs on American streets, using the profits to finance the Contras in Nicaragua, violating the will of Congress.
When Manuel Noriega threatened to spill the beans about what Bush did while vice president, Bush Sr. sent the military to Panama to capture Noriega and shut him up, and in the process, he killed 6,000 Panamanians. My God.
Let's not forget the first Gulf War under Shrub Sr.
Bush Sr. put a lot of blood on American hands during that war. Saddam Hussein was our ally, and he spent 1 million Iraqi lives fighting Iran for us, using our weapons that we gave him.
Right. When Saddam went in and took out the royal Kuwaiti family, we should have patted him on the back. The Kuwaitis had never been America's friend. But Saddam, he made a big mistake, didn't he?
In World War II, Daddy Bush was a Nazi collaborator and worked out a deal with Hitler to leave Kuwait alone, preserving the royal Kuwaiti family.
The royal Kuwaiti family showed their appreciation to Daddy Bush by granting the Bush family royalties on Kuwaiti oil forever. Poor Saddam. He didn't know about that arrangement.
Well, when Saddam took out the royal Kuwaiti family, he put a pinch on the Bush family income. That really pissed off George H. Bush, and so we had the first Gulf War.
In order to protect Bush family income, Bush killed 500,000 Iraqis, including the totally unnecessary slaughter on the highway of death.
So, with Reagan and Bush Sr., we have 12 years of Republican presidents.
Yeah, 12 years of lying, breaking the law, and murdering around 600,000 people in the world to suit their political agenda.
12 years of supply-side economics and massive debt.
12 years of union busting and turning the American dream into a corporate fascist dream.
12 years of conservative evangelical Christians worshiping Republican crooks and murderers. How about that?
12 years of Reagan and Bush really hurt us. Luckily, we had 8 years of Bill Clinton. We got a break from supply-side economics, we slowed down the accumulation of debt, we actually balanced the budget, and we stopped killing everyone around the world for political reasons.
But the good years with a Democrat only lasted 8 years. Then we got another Republican for president, George W. Bush. Going by the performance of the last 2 Republican presidents, we pretty much knew what was going to happen.
Right. True to form, under Bush Jr., we accumulated massive amounts of debt again.
Bush violated all kinds of international treaties when he ordered torture, and violated U.S. law when he spied on Americans.
The Republicans accelerated the debt with all their tax breaks for corporations and the rich. They didn't create any jobs.
Yeah, and Bush and the Republicans deregulated the banks and financial markets, and you can see how that worked out.
In other words, George W. Bush was a typical Republican. He lied, broke the law, and committed mass murder. The Republican Party backed him 100%, and Christian Republicans couldn't get enough spilled blood to satisfy them. Typical Republicans. Typical corporate fascists.
8 years of George W. Bush and the Republican Party nearly destroyed this country. The nation was sick and tired of Republicans. It didn't matter who the Democrats nominated for the presidency, that person would win.
Yeah, Did the Republicans put up someone different from all the past Republican nominees going back to Reagan? Did they learn their lesson after George W. Bush?
Of course not. They nominated John McCain. They nominated yet another lying, cheating, warmongering believer in supply-side economics who appealed to the evangelical Christian need to spill blood and wage unnecessary wars on people who can't defend themselves.
On top of all that, John McCain was a traitor. He was never tortured by the North Vietnamese. He sustained his injuries bailing out of his airplane. Once captured, he traded top-secret information in order to get medical treatment.
Well, McCain gave the North Vietnamese information on Navy bomber strike packets. Those were the lanes Navy fighter bombers took on their bombing runs over North Vietnam.
Armed with information from John McCain, North Vietnam moved anti-aircraft and missile batteries into those bomber lanes, resulting in the deaths of several Navy bomber pilots.
He was not tortured by the North Vietnamese. John McCain was singing like a songbird, and he received favorable treatment from his captors.
Yep. When the war ended, John McCain was the only flyer the Navy intended to court-martial for treason.
However, Richard Nixon wanted to end the war and didn't want to drag the country through a court-martial, so he instructed the Navy to drop all charges against John McCain. McCain got off scot-free.
Going back to Ronald Reagan, there's something strange about the Republican Party. What's even more peculiar is the way good Republicans keep supporting liars, murderers, draft dodgers, and people claiming to do things they never did while in the service.
Well, yeah. Let's not forget how the Republicans ruined our nation financially.
That's true. Going back to Reagan, all the Republicans running for president have supported supply-side economics. Reagan, Bush, and Bush, with the aid of the Republican Party, have totally devastated United States finances over the years. With the election of 2012, we have yet another Republican promoting the destruction of America. Mitt Romney advocates even more supply-side economics.
More attacks on the middle class.
Yep, for sure. More tax breaks for his rich friends.
More corporate fascism.
More slaughter of civilians using the military.
More states' rights in an attempt to break up the United States.
A continued war on women and minority rights. In order to win the election, Mitt Romney is catering to male chauvinist pigs and women haters, old guard American racists, religious fanatics, radical gun owners masturbating over pictures of dead people, and selfish, self-centered people quite willing to step over the bodies of fellow Americans because they only care about themselves. In other words, Mitt Romney is counting on typical Republicans going back to Ronald Reagan to put him in the White House. What's really sad is that Americans may put yet another lying, cheating, self-centered Republican bent on mass murder into the Oval Office.